Fried chicken, family legacy, and a Dominican dream. Welcome back to The Passionate Palate, a podcast for food lovers and culinary explorers where we talk about various foods, flavors, and ingredients from around the world. I'm your host, Zain. Today, we're diving into the story behind the famous John's Fried Chicken, a Dominican restaurant that opened up in the early 1970s in New York. It's a story full of flavor, family, and Dominican hustle. My guest grew up in the kitchen of her grandmother's fried chicken restaurant, a small dream that grew into a beloved local chain with 5 more locations in New Jersey. From working at just 8 years old to now running a family business full-time, her journey is nothing short of inspiring. Please welcome Tatiana Nunez. Hi, Tatiana. Welcome to my podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you, and it's nice seeing you. All right, let's take us back to the 1970s. What inspired your grandmother to start a fried chicken restaurant with her sons?
So I wasn't around then because I was born in 1980. But when I hear the stories that everyone shares with us, it all started because my grandmother came to this country by herself. She left her
Wow.
kids and her husband back in Dominican Republic, looking
Wow.
for a better life like everyone would like, and everyone has that dream. So she came, and believe it or not, she began working in a factory, and it was a potato factory at that. And it was they always say this funny story because they would say and it sounds better in Spanish, but they would say she works in a potato factory, and they said, oh, she's into the potato, which in our culture it means like she's in the money. So to everyone, she was like, "Oh, she's making money because she's in the
Right,
potato." That's what they would say, and they're
right.
like, "Yeah, like she's in the money." But that was not
Wow,
like that in the
right.
beginning.
I'm
So
sure.
she was here for several years. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away while she
Um,
was here. She was unable to go. She didn't have her papers yet. And then slowly she began bringing her children, of which are 5 kids. She has 2 boys and 3 girls. My mom is one of the girls. And when the boys came here, everyone got jobs. You know, they were the older ones. And they worked at this fried chicken place. It was actually a Cuban place.
okay.
The name that they tell me, and I believe there's one in Miami still, is El Corporal. That
Hmm.
was the name. And the owner became very fond of my uncles, and he actually wanted to, I don't know, like sell them his business, or
Okay.
kind of include them in the business because they were very hardworking.
Wow.
He liked their work ethic. And instead, my uncle said, no, just, give us the seasoning. So he gave them his seasoning, and they told him, like, we're not going to open the same name, but we're
Right.
going to change a few things up and create a Dominican seasoning, because that was a Cuban
Okay.
restaurant. So my grandmother and my 2 uncles, and again, this is a story I hear from everyone sharing with us. They added a few things. The
Hmm.
main ingredient that I would say that stands out of everything else is the Dominican oregano, which
Oh,
comes from Dominican Republic. And
wow.
that was one of the items that was a little different. And they added a few things here and there. So back in Dominican Republic, my grandmother actually used to cook food in her home and sell it to the public
Wow.
where
So
she
she had
lives.
so she had like a culinary background, like she used to cook a lot and all that.
Correct, correct.
Wow. So
So
interesting.
so then that's how the seasoning began. And then they started with one store, and when everyone thinks like, oh, John Fried Chicken, they have several stores. The first store actually did not succeed. It failed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
And then they opened another one, which I believe the second one was the one that we have open right now in New York, which has been open since 1974.
that's
And
awesome.
it's still open. And I would say it's the best fried chicken one. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the location, but we all use the same seasoning. And for some reason, I was like, that one just tastes like it did back in 1970.
That's amazing to hear. So I'm just wondering, so what's if like you've tasted the oregano here? What do you think is different between the oregano here and in the DR? Like what do you feel about it?
I feel like it has a kick. It's just more powerful.
Okay.
I don't want to say it's spicy because it's
Uh-huh.
not spice. It's just like it has this punch that is just very strong. And we compared it because, sometimes it's hard to get it exported, or during
Right.
COVID when everything,
Wow, that's true.
was difficult to get certain items. We would compare. We're like, well, let's see, and you could tell like it was just so powerful. is just stronger.
Maybe everything has to do with the environment, the soil, the water. I think all that plays a part.
Correct. I agree. I totally agree. Because over there, lifestyle is very different
Hmm.
and everything is fresh. It's, from
Absolutely.
the farms, and it's just that gives it that kick. It gives it more power.
Right. That's so cool. So what was the, from what the stories that you would hear, what was the community like back when your grandma first opened it? I'm sure it was hard, right? Especially for a woman starting out a business like that.
Yes, that is very true. And a single woman, she
Right.
was alone with 5 children to raise, and it was very, very difficult. We admire her. Unfortunately, she passed away
So
in,
sorry.
yeah, thank you, September 2022, which today is the 22nd, believe it. So when this date came up, I was like, wow, it's a sign.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my
Wow.
mom is currently at a church right now at a mass that she does every 22nd for her. So we all just remember how much she tried and how difficult it was because she didn't speak the language. She was alone raising these kids. She came to Washington Heights, which was not as Hispanic, how do I say, oriented as it is now, or there weren't as many Dominicans then. There were
Right.
some, but it wasn't as populated as it is now. I
I'm
mean, it's
sure.
some people call it the mini DR, but there's full of Dominicans now. So that brings me to the name of John's Fried Chicken, because
Okay.
a lot of people will say like, why is it called John's Fried Chicken,
John's.
like an American name? And part of it had to do with that because it was
Okay.
predominantly an American community, and there weren't many Hispanic restaurants at that time. So she wanted to kind of blend in and make it somewhere that people would want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And she named the American name John's Fried Chicken,
That's so
which when people ask where's that name come from, her eldest son, his name is Juan. So she feels, or what she would say is that she Americanized his name,
right, right.
Juan into John, and she made it
That's so
John's
cool.
Fried Chicken after him.
That's so special. You know, Tatiana, just listening to you talk about your grandma, like I literally have tears in my eyes and I'm getting goosebumps just listening because I can imagine how hard it must have been for her, scared, alone. And back then, when at least if there was a community here that she could relate to, talk to, get help from, you feel some sort of security, right? She must have been so scared coming and leaving her kids behind. And, you know, she started an empire. What a legacy
Yes.
she's left behind, you know? God bless. Wow.
Thank you. That is absolutely true. And she did have a few people that she met, Dominicans, which my family and us are still friendly with, because one specific woman, she went into her home. She lived in a room in her home, and we kept that friendship because they got so close, and her bringing her children, like, everyone integrated together,
Right.
and they did help her. They helped her, but the business obviously she did with her children.
That's
And I think her having her 2 sons, and once her children arrived and then she had her 2 sons, she felt a little more support because,
right.
you know, 2 men at that time, they were older, but it was very difficult, and it is very inspirational. We tell our,
Of
our
course.
kids all the time, and it's a true inspiration.
That's amazing. So I know you started working when you were just 8 years old. What were those days like for you?
So that's what I recall, to be honest, because my mom, I want to say my mom specifically, would take me to work in my stroller. I do
Oh,
remember that. So that was younger than 8 years old. And I would just sit
right.
there and watch them work. At 8, I remember me and my older brother, who's 1 year older than me, him and I would create these little packets. Back then, we would take one tall napkin, like those napkins you get
Right, right,
at a fast food chain, and we would put a fork, a spoon, a knife, a ketchup, a pepper, and a salt,
right.
roll it up, and wrap it with a rubber band. So every customer would get that set of utensils. So we would make that. And I remember those rubber bands would break and,
Goodness.
snap, and it would hurt, and sometimes snap in my face, and my brother would do it on purpose or unintentionally sometimes.
Right,
So I do remember we would do that because that was something we can do. It wasn't like face to face with the customer,
right,
and we
right.
were young children. We could do that kind of in the background. We also had cardboard boxes. I mean, I call them cardboard boxes, but they were like
Mm,
flat cardboard sheets, and we would
okay.
have to create a box out of it. So now, obviously, everything is pre-made. We would have to like construct it, and then it would
Right.
be boxes. We would have to stack them up and organize them, and that's where
Right.
they would get a sheet of wax paper, put it on the
Right.
bottom, and then put the chicken in there with the fries and the bun, because that's what we started with: fried chicken, French fries, and a bun.
Oh, that was just starting off, just simple, and then that's awesome. And it's
Yeah,
so cute too, the memories you have with your brother, that's a
yeah,
very special memory.
it is. It is.
So as you grew up, I know you always worked at the restaurant. What was your favorite job at the restaurant? Was it a cashier, cooking, customer service?
I would say it's serving the customers,
Yeah.
just because I get the interaction to chat with
Hmm.
them. And I'm sure you can relate to this, because I think that's your favorite part, or that was your favorite part as
Yeah.
well. Just interacting with them,
Hmm.
listening to them, seeing their interests, explaining the food. A lot of them would actually ask the history of the name or
Wow.
how it started. So I loved sharing that. And also, I enjoy having repeat customers or
Of
customers
course.
from a different location. Like when we opened the New Jersey location, which was the first one, it was my mom's. It is my
Right.
mom's, it's still open.
Okay.
Customers would say, I used to go to the 207 one and the old lady. And I'm like, that's my grandma.
Oh.
Like, she's the originator. She created
Wow.
this. So I loved all those conversations and interactions.
That makes it so special and that makes people come back. I'm sure generations of family have been coming to your restaurants. That's
Yes,
so
yes.
special.
It's funny you say that, because this morning I took my parents to get these vitamin B12 shots, and I was driving them there this morning. And I said to my dad, hey, the New Jersey Transit driver that always went to buy the rotisserie chicken and the rice and the maduros for his son, that he was a baby, on Tuesday, and he asked about you, and he's like, oh really? And he's like, oh yeah, is the son like still big and tall? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I remember he used to go. And I said, he asked me how you're doing, and he said that he will never forget that you always would say, that body your son has is because of our chicken. I thought it was so sweet, and my dad loved hearing
Yeah.
that, because he doesn't go anymore to the business as
Right.
often as he used to.
Right.
I love sharing those stories, and that just recently happened.
That's so sweet. That's so special. And that's also what makes you unique. Like I
Yes,
know there are businesses that open, people come, they eat, they leave, but this is more a family. It's family and it's a special bond that you create with these customers that lasts a lifetime. That's awesome. So I know you chose a different path for a while, like as a bank teller and auditor. What drew you to that field?
so during the time that I made that decision, the economy was not doing so well,
Mm,
and the businesses were struggling. And in my mind, and I remember I even mentioned it to my mom, I thought, let me go out of here to make money to bring back in to the business. So that was my mindset. Like, I'm not going to take from somewhere where it's already scarce. Let me go somewhere else. And I was
smart.
always interested, yeah, in finance. I wanted to go to college for
Mm,
business management and finance.
right.
And I figured, let me get in there. And part of it was I learned that if you work in the field where you're studying in college, they will pay for some of your credits. So
Mm,
I thought, okay, let me go there, because then they could pay for some of my classes.
right.
My older brother was in college, and my mom was struggling to be able to pay for him. So I was going next, and I said, you know what? Let me get a job that will help me with that.
So even while you had a full-time job, you still worked at the restaurants, right? Like weekends, holidays. So what kept pulling you back?
I have always been very family oriented and always loved to help my parents in any way that I can. So I felt like I wanted to support them. Again, like my grandmother, my parents didn't speak very much English. They can defend themselves, but there are certain things that they're
Right.
not as fluent as I am and my brothers. So I always came back because I felt like I wanted to support them and I wanted to share the things I was learning. So there were things that I was learning in college that they weren't practicing because they didn't know.
Right.
Sometimes, I would think back, or some of my siblings or cousins would say, like, I don't understand why they do it this way and they don't do it that way. And I was like, well, they don't have the knowledge. Like, they didn't have the education we
I
had.
know.
They didn't finish high school. Like,
Right.
went straight to work.
Right.
So I wanted to share that too. And I did take over or helped her slowly take over the financing part of the
Hmm.
business, which is what I mainly focus on now. And I implemented everything I learned being in school. And when I was in banking, like I would help her with refinancing or getting a mortgage, or, she purchased one of the properties where she was opening the business in. So I assisted her with that. So it always brought me back. And I always felt like this is where I belong. I felt home in
Right.
in our restaurant.
That's wonderful. So, what made you finally take that leap to join the restaurant full time?
So in January of 2015, there were a lot of cuts in a lot of companies. And my company, I was working at JP Morgan Chase. I was an auditor there.
Right.
They were cutting employees out. I don't know if I was the last one to go into that auditing position, but I was definitely one of the youngest ones there.
Okay.
My position was eliminated.
Oh,
So, yeah, so
it's tough.
January, I mean, they gave me like time. I
Right.
mean, I was devastated because
I'm
I
sure.
was like, I've been in banking for 19 years. They're going to get rid
Mm.
of me. What is happening? I felt like it was the worst day of my life. And I remember calling my husband and I was like devastated. I'm like, can you believe that this is happening? And he was so supportive. I have to
Oh,
say, he's always been so supportive. He said, don't worry, we're going to get through this. You're
right.
a smart woman. You'll get another
Yes, you
job and everything
absolutely
will be
are.
better. So he kind of lifted me up. I mean, I was still sad. And I think the hardest part was that I got that notice, I got that information, but then I was still employed through March. So I was still going to work from
Right.
January to
Wow.
March, knowing that I wouldn't be there yeah, I believe it was the middle of March that I was my last day. And then, I mean, I got a very, very decent severance package. I got all my personal sick. I had at least like 60 days that I had not used,
Right.
and they paid me that. So I was okay. And then I got unemployment. They had a recruiter that they hired to assist me in looking for another job. It was a nice package. I had other
Right.
coworkers that were like, can you give me her package and keep
Wow.
her? But my salary was pretty up there. So I was one of the employees they wanted to manage out. And it was funny because then a few weeks or months after, I got a few phone calls from the bank and they're like, oh, do you want to come back? And, you'll be in
Really?
this position. Yeah. And it was funny because I was like, but the salary is like one third of what I used to make. Like,
Wow.
what? And even my
Right.
recruiter was like, don't take it. Don't take it. You're making more
Wow.
on unemployment
Right.
than going back to work. So I took 6 months off, spent it with my kids, and I was still working at the restaurant, but it was,
Right.
weekends, holidays,
Right.
here and there. And then one of my mom's like main, I would say it was like her manager retired or quit, gave her notice. And my mom was like, why don't you just take her position? And I was like, all right. And then that's how I got back into it.
Right. Like everything happens for a reason, and maybe at that time you were really needed there. And it just so happens that I know you would have been crushed. I can't even imagine. You dedicate so much of your time and you're working so hard, and when something like this comes. But the good thing is that at least you were taken care of pretty, decently, and for you to exit out. So,
Yeah, yeah. I will never forget my manager when she came to meet me. We went out for lunch. She explained what happened. She said something to me that really struck me. She said, if this didn't happen to you, that we gave you a severance package and we had to let you go because of your position being eliminated, she said you would have never left us because
uh,
your drive and your dedication to your job is so strong. And she even said that she felt that was part of my entrepreneur background with my family. So she's like, not many people have that work ethic. And it's because of the background you come from, your family in a business and you're working in it and you're watching them gave you such a strong work ethic that she really truly feels I would have never left. That really stuck with me. And it took me a while. At first I was like, what? What is she saying? Like I kind of got upset, but then now I feel like she was right. I think I would have probably still been there.
Right. Because you know what? I was thinking the same thing because you're so driven. And I guess that all comes, it's in your blood, you know? It's in your blood, the drive, the passion, and the dedication towards something. Yeah, that is something that cannot be taught. You can't teach someone to love a job and be dedicated. It has to come from within. And you got that. So that's very inspirational, Tiana. You're welcome. So the business has grown to 6 locations. That's huge. How did y'all make that growth happen?
Each location is individually owned by a family member. So we're not a franchise.
Mhm.
And the first one, like I said, started my grandmother.
Right.
And then eventually, like my uncle, expanded into his own, and everyone, started opening their own locations in Washington Heights. There
Okay.
was one point where we had one on 172nd St. Nicholas, which was my uncle Juan Jones.
Okay.
One in 183rd St. Nicholas, which was my parents. It was originally opened by my mom, my dad, and my aunt and my uncle. They were partners.
Okay.
And then eventually they separated and it was just my parents. And then the 207 and Post, which is by Dykeman, that one. So they were all like in a line
Right.
in Washington Heights. We even had one in 191st St. Nicholas as well. One of my uncles, my other uncle had that one. So we slowly began expanding, and we opened in a few different places too, like in Audubon and Broadway, just a few different locations. But then eventually, my mom looked into New Jersey because we did move into New Jersey,
Okay.
and that driving to New York City from New Jersey, and during that time, that was in the 1990s, it was getting very dangerous, especially for business owners.
Okay.
My grandmother did get robbed in her
Oh,
apartment.
no.
Yes, so that gave a lot of fear to the family, especially my mom.
Right.
So literally, my mom one summer was looking for houses, and it was so fast that my brother was on vacation in Dominican Republic. My mom purchased a house. We moved in, and when my brother came back, we were in the house. He was like, "What happened?" Like he was in shock. I'll
Right.
never forget that. And then while we lived here in New Jersey, she was like, I have to do something. So she
Hmm.
started looking around. I remember it was between Englewood and where we are now, Guttenberg, Bergen Line, that she was debating between opening her restaurant, or the John's Fried Chicken, the first one in New
Right.
Jersey. She took the plunge. I mean,
Oh,
a lot of people said this is a risk. We've never been in New
right.
Jersey. We don't know this clientele, and
Hmm.
she did it.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah, she had the 183rd
Awesome.
St. Nicholas, and she
Right.
had the one in New Jersey, the Bergen Line one, which eventually she had to close the one in Manhattan
Okay.
in 183rd and just keep this one.
So besides fried chicken, you also serve Dominican food. What dishes are must have for new customers?
So I always recommend the rotisserie chicken. It's like
Oh,
we started with the rotisserie chicken when the health frenzy was
right, right,
high, that everyone wanted to eat healthier, people like didn't
right.
want to eat fried chicken and
Uh-huh.
be on the healthier side. So everything is the same seasoning for the
Hmm.
rotisserie chicken except the breading from the fried chicken.
Right.
And then we incorporated slowly different dishes like
Hmm.
rice and beans,
Hmm.
the fried plantains, and then we did like stewed chicken. Then people started asking for different things. Can we get beef? Can we get,
Oh.
roast pork? Because we do that a lot, but then meat, very popular. So then they started incorporating all those items. So
So these were all
we
based on like customers, like they would come and request, can you make this and can you make that? So you kind of cater to customers' needs.
Correct. And because there were other restaurants around us opening that were offering these items. So they would say,
Oh.
such and such restaurant across the street has, pork and rice and beans.
Right,
So we started saying, okay, so let's keep up with the competition
right.
and start incorporating these dishes. So that's where it all began. And we have everything, from our soups, from our sancochos, we make spaghetti, which people will be like, "You have spaghetti," but it's like a Dominican style spaghetti.
What is the Dominican style of spaghetti? Like what makes it different to like the Italian way of doing it?
And it's really just one. It's a red sauce, but
Right.
we put our seasoning in it, so it has that little kick.
Oh, that's the secret.
Yes, yes, we do put our seasoning in it, but it's everything, like tomato, olive
Hmm.
oil, water,
Right.
the pasta, garlic, and then we put our seasoning in it. So it does change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we incorporated like, staple dishes that people look for, like mashed
Hmm.
potatoes, because sometimes,
Right.
parents go with their kids and we incorporate that.
Right.
We do a lot of different like traditional things, like we do a pastelón, which is made out of uh, the yellow plantain, but it
Okay.
also has ground beef inside of it and
Mm.
topped with cheese. So it's like a Dominican lasagna because people be like, oh, is this like
Wow.
a
Sounds
Dominican
so
lasagna?
delicious.
It is very good. So we'll be like, yeah, but there's no pasta, it's gluten free because it doesn't
Right.
have
Right.
any pasta in it. So just different dishes, and we just expanded. I remember I told my husband one time, I was like, we have 92 like different
My
foods
goodness.
that we make fresh every day
Wow.
because everything is cooked fresh daily. It's a lot.
That's
It's a lot of
incredible.
different
It
items. Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. So I know running a restaurant business is the hard. I had a bakery and it was just sweets and desserts. This is like hot food that has to be coming up, like frequently. I can't even imagine. So what some of the hardest moments that you've experienced and how did you get through it?
I would say hard. I think we have hard times every day. If we get down to it, always something comes up.
Okay.
But I would say a really hard time has been when the power went out.
Oh,
Had one time, yeah, I would say probably Hurricane Sandy was tough because we didn't have power for an extended period of time. And we had a lot of damage of food. We had damage of even equipment. So it was
man.
tough. It was a chaotic time. I remember during that time my brother had opened his location in Union City
Okay.
and he got the brunt of it because he was very close to Hoboken. So
Oh,
he had some significant flooding.
wow.
And although we had some damage too, but it was
Right.
hard because then, there's no alarms. So you don't
Right.
know if someone's breaking in. You don't
Right.
know, we had to clear everything out and throw everything out because nothing was good from the spoiling. So it was a very, very difficult time.
I can't even imagine. That's a huge like loss of like so many things, food, equipment, all that stuff. So how do you train your staff? Because like I said, just having a bakery and having a few employees, it's hard trying to maintain, trying to keep check of everything, having very honest, trustworthy people. So how do you manage training employees and especially cooks to make sure that the food tastes just like when your grandmother made
Very good question.
it? Thank you.
So that is very difficult. And I'm gonna answer this based on the Bergen Line location because that's the
Hmm.
one that, I pretty much work at and run. We have very loyal employees, I will say. We have 11 employees, and out of the 11, I would say 8 of them have been with us between and 29 years. Yeah,
That's
yeah, they
wow.
become family.
Yeah.
And one of them, she was actually our front end line, but my mother taught her how to cook and all the seasoning and everything and how to prepare all the dishes. She's like my number one employee. So she trains all the cooks when they
Okay.
come. And I will say our cooks, they stay for a while. I have not had anyone with a quick turnover except my front end, I would say. But my cooks are there. I would say I've had between 10 years to 15 years that they stay because we've been open there for 31 years already, that
Okay.
location. So we rely on these veteran employees and
Right.
ourselves, obviously, because we
Right.
interview them. We explain to them what the position is, and then we ourselves train them, or we have our veteran employees train them, and we observe and we watch, and we give
Hmm.
feedback.
Right.
But they they're just they're just very loyal, very good. We treat them like family. Honestly, to me, they're not an employee. They're family.
Right.
I have customers that walk in and they'll be like, "Where's the owner, so and so?" And they mentioned that employee, and I'm like, "Yeah, she's in the back. They're looking for the owner." She always gets upset. She's like, "Why do you go along with it?" I'm like, "Because you are. You're family." We had a celebration, and sorry to like defer the question
Right.
a little bit, but we had a celebration for our 25th year anniversary there, and I got the shirts made for all of the John's Fried Chicken owners with like founder of 207, founder
Right.
of
Okay.
Union City of each of their location. And for this specific employee, I got a jacket made for her, and
Oh,
I put
that's
like
sweet.
manager and like our best employee. It meant so much to her. It
Of
was great.
course.
But she is family, and I think a lot of these employees that have been with us for a long period of time do become family, and they have interest in the business, and they
Right.
see that we want to help them as well as, make the business succeed. Because we always do tell them that. We say, hey, if we close our doors, you guys don't have a job. So
Right.
we don't want to do that. We want you
Right.
guys to be employed. We have some single mothers. We have some people that they're the sole breadwinner of their families. So we want to help our community, help in any way we can, as well as
Right.
help the business progress.
You know what? That also says a lot about you guys, you and your family. For people to be loyal and work for you for so many years, it's also how you treat them. That says a lot because you could get a job anywhere, right? But to consistently come to work, show up and be there, also they feel loved. And
Yes.
that's a very special relationship. And I don't think you get that often or in too many places. So that's really special.
You're right. It does mean a lot to us,
Yeah.
and we also don't want to hold them back because we have a lot of employees that
Hmm.
have worked for us, especially the Bergen Line location. We had some employees that would tell my parents, like, "Hey, I wanna move up in this world. I want to do something, and can I? Do you mind if I work the day shift and I study at night,
Right.
or I go
Wow.
to school in the day and I work the night shift?" And I can think of three from the top of my head that became one became um, is that not an electrician? He does refrigeration
Hmm.
and like cooling and refrigeration. So he opened up his company,
That's
and
amazing.
another one became a contract. Like he opened up a contracting company and
Wow.
owns two bars. And another one became an electrician. He did become an electrician, and they come back all the time and they thank my dad. They're like, "Thank you for helping me
Wow.
progress,"
Right.
And my dad gave them all hope. They said, "You work
Hmm.
hard, you dedicate yourself, and you will do whatever you want." So that support also helped our community grow because they
Of
live in the
course.
area. So there are customers, they come. There are times that we're busy and they go behind the counter and they give us a hand. So it's great. It's a community.
It really sounds, it's just not a community. It's a very special, like strong knit, a strong bonded community. It's awesome. Do you guys have a central kitchen where you cook or do you all cook on site in each location?
On site in each location.
Okay. So, how do you handle sourcing ingredients? I know you get your oregano from the Dominican Republic. Do you have specific suppliers here that understands your needs and, like, how your unique flavors and your standards?
Yes. So we had, especially for our seasoning that we create, we had a
Mm-hmm.
company that we worked with directly, Gel Spice,
Mm-hmm.
that they have very fresh products and they have exact products that we need and we like, the quality of it. Unfortunately, they actually cut us off a while ago because they're only doing business with big corporations. So you have to buy like a certain amount of product for them to
Okay.
serve you. So now we have to go to like different companies to get these
Right.
products, but we have to maneuver how to find who's carrying this
Right.
company's products. But that was our main, and that is our main expense, I would say, our most expensive item to make our
Right.
seasoning because the quality is so high.
Right.
But everything else we do shop at Restaurant Depot, BJ's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for our meats and poultry, we use Nebraska Land, who used to be a smaller company, mom and pop, like we are, and then
Right.
they got purchased by Nebraska Land. But
Wow.
it's a funny story there too, because the owner had an agreement with them that his children, or at least I know one of his kids,
Mm-hmm.
has to work for the company and keep
Right.
the relationship with these
Wow.
businesses, with you're one of them. So we still deal with him directly, not with
Nice.
the company Nebraska
Right.
Land. Yeah. So we have that
That
one-on-one
personal
connection.
connection. That's awesome.
Correct.
Yeah.
We get merchandise practically daily.
Right.
And I know because customers will be like, "There's every day something's coming in." And we're like,
Right.
"Yeah, because the produce has to be fresh.
Of
Everything has to
course.
be made from scratch." So
Right.
it's like you're shopping. You go to the supermarket once a week at least at your
Yeah.
house, or sometimes sometimes I go 2, 3 times a week
I
to
know.
shop for my house. Here, Restaurant Depot is at least twice a week.
Yeah.
BJ's once or twice a
Yeah.
week. We have our vendors. Our chicken is delivered 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Wow.
So when customers come in and they're like, I don't want chicken from yesterday, like, we get chicken 3 times a week. Trust me, you're not getting
Right.
anything
And
from
also
even.
it needs to be marinated, like it's not like you get it straight from the supply and you're cooking it. You gotta marinate it, let the flavors infuse. So yeah, sometimes people
Yeah.
don't understand, but that's gotta be tough, like going to so many places. But that's what makes it special. You're not just like one stop shop and that's it. You're getting ingredients and produce, poultry from like consistently from different like places, and that's got to be tough to manage. But I'm sure by now you guys are like pros. I'm sure it would have been hard at the start, but yeah, that's what makes you guys so special.
We got it to work.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
What's your process when launching a new restaurant? Do you look for certain neighborhoods, customer basis, business conditions?
So I'll speak for myself individually
Mm-hmm.
because I think everyone maybe looks for different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, we do look for places that have clientele that would be attracted to our food, or an area that's in need of our type of food, because we'll
Right.
go to some areas where there's a lack of, Spanish food. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have to go a distance to find something.
Right.
So we do look for places like that. I mean, when we started in New Jersey, I know my mom was specifically looking for an area that customers would want to purchase our food because she did
Mm-hmm.
not want to fail.
Right.
So she didn't open where we lived because there wasn't a big Hispanic
Right.
base, but she did open in an area that had more
Right.
customers that would be interested in purchasing our food. But I would say that's what we look for. We look
Mm-hmm.
either if there's a lack of that food, where customers have been saying, we have a lot of customers that come in and say, hey, I live at such and such place and there's nothing there to eat, and
Right.
I'm looking for something like this and I tried this place and it's not the
Right.
same. So that's what we look at. Recommendations, we'll scope the area and we see if it makes sense for us.
That's smart. That's, I think, the best way to go about it is that if the need is there, the demand's there, then that's where you go. So, what lessons did your grandmother pass down that still guide how the business is run today?
My grandmother always said, whatever you do it with love and do it to help in any way you can. She always helped whoever she could in any way she could. And she said, if someone doesn't have enough money, to pay for their meal, but they're hungry or they need it,
Right.
give it to them, because food you can give to anyone. She would always, always have abundance of food in her house. And she helped many, many people from her village come to this country.
Really?
Friends, family. And to this day, I meet different people that say, I'm in this country because of your grandma. And I've met people that say, I was able to feed my kids because your grandma gave me a job.
Wow.
And my husband said, anyone that came from our village, they worked
Right.
at John's Fried Chicken. My father-in-law actually worked at John's Fried Chicken.
Wow. It's
So
incredible.
she always would help whoever she could help. And she would take the shirt off her back to help whoever needed it. And that's something I always admired from her. She also always said to help those in need
Mm-hmm.
that were less fortunate. She always would send things to her family in Dominican Republic and even people that just needed it. It didn't even have to be family
Right.
or related to her. But if she knew that someone needed something, she could, send it to them. Or when there was like a hurricane or something that was affecting a significant amount of people, especially in her village, I would say.
Right.
She would send, like, in our culture, you sent a lot of like boxes with food and clothes and things
Right.
over, and with the box goes, a bag of rice and a container of oil, and she would send that consistently. And my husband was actually one of those children that lived in Dominican Republic when those shipments
Wow.
would come in, and he will
Right.
tell me, your grandma would send all these things over here. And
Wow.
he's like, it's unbelievable how much she helped. So
Right.
I think her message was always to
Mm-hmm.
help whoever you can help, and give a helping hand, and don't let anything stop you because you feel that it's going to affect your bottom line,
Right.
because God will always see
Right.
that and help those that are around you. Like she
Mm-hmm.
would always say, I'm helping someone, but I'm sure that one day it's going to pay it forward to one of my kids, someone
Right.
that I love, which is when her
Right.
kids, when her
Yeah.
grandkids. So that's the message I would say that she always shared with us.
That's such a beautiful memory. And, your grandma sounds like such an angel, like literally, like to help people, look after people.
Her name is actually Santa Maria, which I always sound like she had the name of a saint because Santa is saint in
Saint,
Spanish.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. What advice would you give young people who want to build something of their own? Something like, in any business that they want to pursue in.
Guess I would say to be consistent, to be disciplined, and have a plan. And don't let obstacles defer you because there's obstacles in everything. There is nothing that is easy, and the good things that come are built off of those obstacles and we learn from them. There are times that we try and, oh, the first time it didn't work out, that's it. Let's keep moving. Just take whatever you learned from that. And I don't like to call it a failure because I don't think anything is a failure. I think everything is a learning curve or a learning process. And we just take that and keep growing. I feel like I say me, my generation, my brothers, my cousins, we learned a lot from our parents and my grandmother, our parents who have open businesses. And we try to implement what we have learned because we're a different generation. We went to college, went to school, we went to college. And
Right.
I always say the next generation of our kids are going to do even better than us. But we have to just keep pushing because they never stop. That's
Absolutely.
why they
Right.
progress. Like
Right.
I said, the first location failed. My grandmother had to close it down and then she went on, so don't
Wow.
give up because the first time it didn't work out.
Right.
Maybe that wasn't meant to be, or maybe there was a lesson there that you needed to learn. So keep pushing and keep trying because eventually you will fall into whatever is meant to be and just enjoy it. And you'll feel it. You'll feel
Right.
it. Like you'll get that feeling that you're like, oh wow, like I went through all that, but here I am.
I think that's great advice. Really. It's awesome. All right. Now let's play a little game. It's like rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask you. When it comes to fried chicken, drumsticks or thighs?
Drumstick.
Okay. What's your favorite Dominican dish besides the fried chicken?
My favorite, my husband's not gonna like this, but my favorite would be rice, beans, eggplant,
Okay.
and maduros.
Okay. All right. Morning person or night owl?
Morning person.
What's always playing in the kitchen? Bachata, merengue, or reggaeton?
Reggaeton, but also merengue combination.
If your restaurant had a theme song, what would it be?
I'm thinking of the song, but I can't think of the name. My God, drawing a blank.
You want a few minutes to think about it.
It's bailando, which is dancing,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that's the name of the song, bailando,
Yeah,
which is
Enrique
dancing.
Iglesias. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bailando.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
bailando,
that's the
yeah,
song. Yeah.
bailando.
I like that song.
I know that's my theme name because I love to
Yeah.
dance, but bailando.
Nice. Would you rather run a food truck or open a seventh location?
Seventh location. My
One celebrity you'd love to serve your chicken to.
Daddy Yankee, and I have to think
Oh,
about
really?
that.
That's
Daddy
awesome.
Yankee.
And what would your grandma say if she saw the business today?
I'd be very proud and inspired by
Yeah.
our continued efforts.
So wonderful. Tatiana, I had so much fun and it was so inspirational listening to you. And it's such an incredible story of, the beginnings of, your grandma coming to this country. And she also symbolizes that passion, hard work, and dedication can, like build something that could last generations. It was thank you for being here. So this brings us to the end of this episode of The Passionate Palate. If you guys have any questions for Tatiana or me, please drop them in the comments, and please do share this episode with your family and friends. Tatiana, I want to thank you once again for being my guest on the show today, for sharing such inspirational, the behind the scenes of your grandma, your family, the unity and the hustle, and the successes of who you are today and all your locations. It's from everything that we've talked about. I know it never came easy. There was so many ups and downs that you had to go through, but with the love and the bond that you have and with your grandma and, your uncles, your parents. It's so special. And I wish you continued successes for opening more locations if that's what your plan is.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you allowing to share our story, our family story, and my grandmother's story. And I hope it helps others to inspire them that they can
Of
start
course.
from nothing and build a legacy. And it means so much. I don't think you know how much it means that you were able to take some time and think of me and my family's business to include in your podcast. So thank you very much. I
It's my
appreciate this and I
pleasure.
appreciate you.
Thank you. And I do the same. Thank you also for finding time. I know I can't even imagine how busy you are for finding time to be on the podcast. And thank you guys for watching. If you are craving some really good fried chicken and Dominican food, head on over to John's Fried Chicken in 5 locations in New Jersey, 1 in New York. And also give them a follow at John's Fried Chicken on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. And also subscribe to my channel at The Passionate Palate, and stay tuned for more flavorful, inspirational stories such as this one. And always remember, don't count the calories, count the delicious memories.